Good afternoon and welcome to STEM Inspiration Week, brought to you by STEMPOINT East. Welcome to all the students that have joined us today. I hope you're sort of sitting comfortably and looking forward to this talk. Your camera is off and you're on mute at the moment. I think we've got somebody else joining us as well now. So if you keep your cameras off and your mics off, that's fine. We have got the function for chat, which is a way for you to ask questions of our speaker today. So do have a look at the chat function, and maybe if you're watching one screen, nominate somebody from the class, or maybe your teacher can use the chat function to ask questions, because that's a great way to be more interactive. So just to remind you, this session is being recorded, and I'm now going to introduce JEMIMA WILLCOX, who's going to talk to you a little bit about her career as a photographer. Take it away, JEMIMA. Thank you.
Oh, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for spending the time with me this afternoon. Just going to share my screen now. So just going to check we can see that. Give me a thumbs up if you can. Excellent. That's fantastic. So welcome everybody. That should be a gift. There we go. Excellent. So welcome everybody. So I thought it'd be nice to start off basically and give you a little bit of facts about my career and where I've gone so far. So I'm the owner and of JEMIMA WILLCOX Photography. I'm the co-founder of the WILLCOX Collective. So I have 2 businesses under my name. I'm the author of 2 books. These came around basically where my degree project, when I studied photography at university, I published a book for my 3rd year's degree, and then also published another coffee table book about cosplayers the year before that as well. My photography has been published over 25 times nationally and internationally. That's local publications and some national publications as well. Alongside that, I've been a guest on TV and talking about my work on ITV this morning, no less. I get to meet Eamon Holmes and talk about the projects I was working on whilst I was at university, and also was interviewed on BBC 5 Live Radio and Scottish BBC Radio as well. So lots of interesting activities and experiences from being a photographer. My business is 4 years old. So JEMIMA WILLCOX Photography has been going this week for 4 years, and I'm very proud that it's been going on for that amount of time. And in a bit, we're going to go into talking about how I got there and how I achieved where I am in business right now. And then I've actually had 4 exhibitions as well. So 2 of those have been part of my degree, and 2 of those have been part of organising and presenting my own work in my own way. So let's go on to a bit about me. So who is JEMIMA WILLCOX Photography? Who am I? So I'm dyslexic, and that's a big part of my identity, my personality. So my dyslexia was only identified whilst I was at university. So I've gone through most of my education having a bit of a difference, the way that I think, the way that I speak, and the way that my brain works. Now, this has sometimes been a detrimental thing to me. I've not been able to, keep up with people, and I've not been able to do things like maths or spelling, or, it's been quite frustrating. But at the same time, it's a gift. It's something that you should feel very, very proud of, because your brain is completely and utterly wired differently. You are creative. Famous dyslexics include Jamie Oliver. Amazing guy, and he's so famous now, and he used to have to use a dictaphone to get his ideas down. So being dyslexic can be very frustrating, but also can be very liberating and freeing if you think completely different. I live in Cambridge, but I was born and I grew up in London, so used to being in cities. And I left school with 11 GCSEs. Only one of those was a B, the rest of them were further down. And I took the long way to university. So I did more college. I failed a couple of times. I took time out, I worked. I took the long way around. So I'm very pleased that I did so. But it did actually get me to the stage in 2012. I graduated from Anglia Ruskin with a BA Honours in photography. And if I could be anywhere right now, I'd be in Tokyo eating sushi because I love Japanese culture. I love their food, and I think it's a fantastic place. I've been once before. I was due to go on my honeymoon this year, but unfortunately, due to the current pandemic, that's been postponed. But yeah, I absolutely love to travel, and Tokyo is one of my favorite places in the world. So I've told you a little bit about me and my company and my things. The WILLCOX Collective is my new company. It's myself and my husband. So I'm the lead photographer. I'm the person that organizes everything. And I'm a big geek. I am proud to say that I am a geek. And I'm also proud to say I'm a Japanophile, as I mentioned just before. My husband, Xander, is all about the technical, the data, the organization of things. And he's also a big geek. So he likes to play D&D tabletop gaming with his friends. Also, we can't forget the really, really important part of our family and our collective is our cat, Millie. She is the head of the Catitude department, and she is the chief mischief maker. She's very important to keeping our spirits up. I also thought it'd be a nice thing to share with you who we actually work with. So these are local companies. We are working with the university. So we create as a company brilliant brand portraits for amazing people, corporate imagery and marketing imagery used on websites, social media, and everything that you need to be able to promote a business. So let's move on. What did I do to get where I am now? So I've told you a bit that I'm from London. I live in Cambridge. I've studied, I've done the longer route to university. But how did I get into running my own business? So one of the biggest things I want you to know is that being self-employed or running your own business, collaboration is such an important thing. To work with each other, to learn from each other, to grow together. No person is an island. You can only get so far being an individual. You need to collaborate with others. And we'll go into a little bit of the detail about the collaborations I've created that's created the most successful work I have done. So think about this. To maintain a great life and also a great career, to collaborate with others, to use skills from different people is going to get you far. So I highly recommend collaborating. Another thing is volunteering. So I have spent over 10 years photographing, editing, talking to people, engaging with people, thinking about different ideas. But I also have a background in marketing. Now, this background in marketing came because as a photographer and as an individual that's running their business, you need to know how to promote yourself. And volunteering gave me the opportunity and the knowledge and skills to go out there and volunteer with other places. So, for example, way back, over 10 years ago, I volunteered with Oxfam, and I volunteered with a local shop, helping them promote their vintage clothing lines. They were very special because they had vintage clothes in their shop. And to do this, they needed social media. They needed to be on Instagram. They needed to tell everybody in the area that they were doing. Now, I had some experience with using social media, but I wanted to grow this. So by doing this, I volunteered my time to learn from others, to really grow. And if you volunteer, it gives you the opportunity to be in a safe, nice environment where you can make mistakes, you can learn, you can really, really glow. So grow, you can glow as well. I recommend glowing. So volunteering is a very, very good thing to do because you build on skills and it will take you further places. And finally, networking. Now, I'm sure you guys think, oh, that's dead boring, that's a really, mature person, but you're doing it every day. You're making connections, you're learning from people, you're going out there and you're meeting people to basically grow your own network, the people around you. They're going to remember you and they're going to remember how you make them feel and the conversations that you have. And you know that you can call on a person later down in the line and say, that conversation we had really inspired me. I'd like to do this. And that person can then elevate you up and help you. So 3 areas that I have contributed my success to over the last 10 years is collaboration, volunteering, and networking. Now, what why did I choose to be self-employed? I'll be completely honest. I never thought I would be self-employed. I never had aspirations to run a business, but circumstances showed me there were certain ways of doing things I preferred. The world of work is very rigid, and this year we have really shown there is abilities to change the way that we do things. Many people believe that because we've done something for many, many years, it's the right way of doing things. Now, the pandemic has shown us that people can work from home and be more flexible. For me, it was because I didn't agree on certain ways of doing things. There wasn't a flexibility, there wasn't a creativity. I felt stifled. I felt really, so I wanted to do things my way. And being self-employed gives you that opportunity to do the things you want the way you want to do them. And as I've demonstrated in this slide, it's no straight path. And I've mentioned the Kevin Jonas quote here, that it's not a straight line. It's got turns and curves and backwards and forwards and ups and downs. And that's why self-employment is fun. It's exciting because you're never really going to know what happens. You are ultimately in control. You are ultimately going to make those decisions that affect you for the best purpose of you, and you're not being dictated to by others. So being self-employed is a great way to be able to express yourself, to do the things you want to do and make decisions that you want to do. And I chose it because it found a way to free me. It found a way to be able to do things the way that I wanted to. With my dyslexic brain, I wouldn't think like anybody else. So my self-employment journey has allowed me to be a lot more freer, a lot more creative in the way that I do things. I'd like you to think about that self-employment is definitely an option for you. So let's go on to talk about the work that I have done. And there are two particular projects that I think you'll find really interesting that have a bit of a STEM twist to them. So the first one, we're going to have a chat about Cheeky Selfies. Now, Cheeky Selfies came from a collaboration opportunity with Creative Reactions, and they're an annual exhibition collaborating with Pint of Science. Pint of Science is where local scientists get together and put on talks in areas where people wouldn't normally have talks. For example, a neuroscientist doing a lecture in a pub. Something where people can go and actually experience it and find out new things in places they wouldn't normally see. So Pint of Science and in the Cambridge area collaborated with Creative Reactions to bring these scientists together and to collaborate them with artists. And I volunteered for this. So basically it was an opportunity to be paired with a STEM person, somebody in the scientific world that I may have never met before. And we came up with this. So I had the luxury of being paired with Dr. Andrew Chan, an amazing guy, fantastic person, creative and fun. He's an immunologist and did his PhD on the genetics of vaccine responses. So we talked a lot about this kind of thing. As I tell you, I'm pretty geeky. I have a real interest in science, the way things work. I'm just curious about these things, and I have an insatiable thirst of learning more. And Andrew was a fantastic person to collaborate with me with. So we got together and we started thinking about how we could do this. The concept is that he was talking about a specific thing about how cells allow the body to, repel viruses and repel different aspects. So how Cheeky Selfies became a reality, we thought about how we could use cells to demonstrate and illustrate a person. So what he did for me while he was doing his PhD, he got volunteers together and he took a cheek cell swab from inside their cheek and put it on slides under the microscope. The one you're looking at right now is actually Dr. Andrew's cheek cell photographed under a microscope. And he sent this to me and he thought, oh, this would be great. Why don't we combine the two of them to have a real inside out portrait? So he then was very kind to send me the volunteers' cheek cells, and they look a bit like this. So you can see they're all a little bit different. You can see the nucleus there as well. Fascinating, the kind of things. So I then took this next step further, went into his workplace and spent a morning photographing his volunteers. And I'm proud to show you the results. So as you can see, the cheek cells have been superimposed using Photoshop onto the portraits. The top left image with the man sticking his tongue out, I love this. I love this image so much because he sat down and he is called Dr. Jim Kaufman. He's a doctor. And I love how this really pushes the boundaries of what scientists are meant to look like. We also managed to really encapsulate diversity, which I'm very passionate about in these images. We also made sure to make them as personal as possible, a complete inside-out portrait where the cheek cell colours were manipulated to represent the portrait sitter's favourite colours as well. So these were fascinating. These got exhibited in the Creative Reactions 2 days, excuse me a second, and came to critical acclaim, and they have been possibly one of the most popular pieces of work I've done so far. So that's Cheeky Selfies. That's telling you how you can take something as interesting as a cheek cell and convert it into something fascinating and really full of story on one side. What I'd like to do is go on to now is tell you a little bit about how you can run your own business. You might be thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I have the skills. I wanted just to tell you a bit about the skills that I've developed over the last 4 years in business. And I think it's really, really interesting because it's a case of a couple of things. It's confidence. You've got to be self-motivated. You be confident in yourself. Be confident in the thing, or the produce or the service that you're selling. And I don't want you to feel like you can't do it, because anything is possible. Anything is possible. Even 14-year-olds right now are running their own business by buying up limited edition sneakers and selling them on eBay, or buying certain things that are really in demand and selling on Facebook Marketplace. So you can be that person. You can be an entrepreneur. You just have to have the right mindset. You need to be motivated, really, really focused. And you need to know that there are other opportunities out there than just going down the college and university route, that you can create something that's really, really your own. I would say my learnings is that you need to be prepared to fail. You need to be able to learn from your mistakes, and having a really clear analytical mind of how you're intending to set those goals, to set where you want to be. And then if you don't reach them, that's absolutely fine, but you need to be able to reflect on how you do these things. But I want to tell you, and I want you to be really clear to know, you can run your own business. So you also might want to think about STEM in general might come across to you as something that's not very creative. But I disagree. I very much disagree, because STEM in itself is very, very creative. There are certain things that you need to consider to be able to be creative in STEM. So I've got a couple of points for you to think about. So we're talking a lot about how to be creative, and I'm going to draw on points that we've already just covered anyway. So what I think you should definitely be looking at is being creative is get making, do stuff, create stuff. And the more you create stuff, the more you learn, the more you understand and how you can develop. One of the things I love actually doing this year, which I've been really passionate, is 3D printing. Not sure how well you can see this, but this is a STEM Squad necklace, and this is 3D printed from machines we have at home. Now, I had no knowledge of 3D printing at the beginning of the year. My husband Xander decided to look into it and bought a printer. And it's been fascinating because it gives me an opportunity to make really interesting things, learn a new skill, and apply this to what I can do and broaden my ability to understand. So get making. I'd also like you to think about how STEM can get you to be curious. Think, ask questions, get that curiosity going in your head. The more curious you can be, the more creative you can be, and more avenues that you can go down and think about different ways that STEM and creativity can come together for you. I also think going screen free for a proportion of the time when you're looking at creativity and combining that with STEM is really important. So getting pen and paper, getting colouring pens, getting different things, different ways. If you're into music, writing music, and having tactile, using your hands is going to help you understand how elements of STEM with writing and maths, engineering need to have processes and ways of exploring, and explore them by going screen free and using pen and paper to do this. And finally, I think something that you should really be considering if you want to have creativity in STEM is create a brief. What are you passionate about? What do you really care about? I mean, a very passionate and important subject is climate change. How could you incorporate STEM and creativity to create a brief on climate change? And then from that brief, you can then develop it into a project. Because in the working world, we always work on a brief, a set of instructions or requirements that you need to do. And then that project goes on to leading into working with others, creating things, collaboration, and learning how to do things in a creative manner that's going to give you different utter results. So I highly recommend looking at creativity in STEM by being curious, go screen free, create yourself a brief and develop that into a project, and collaborate with others. So we're going to move on now to the next project that I want to share with you. Is Paula Muldoon. So Paula is an amazing woman. We're going to talk about a project that we worked on with her to create some brilliant brand portraits that illustrated her as a person. So a little bit about Paula. She's the orchestral leader of the Cambridge Philharmonic and an award-winning software engineer. So when she talked about this and she told me more about her in our discovery call, my ideas are bouncing off the walls. I'm thinking, wow, okay, so how can I create some portraits of her that talk about her in a musical sense and talk about her in an engineering sense, a software engineering sense? And how can I collide these two bits together to make some interesting portraits? So she told me that she wanted a studio and she wanted it on location. And within the studio, the ones you can see here, we wanted to encapsulate that her violin had personality. That's why she's talking to it in the left-hand side photo. The other things that she gave to me were handwritten music. So she wrote her music, she plays her music. And what I wanted to get together is pushing this all together. Here's a little bit of a behind-the-scenes image of what she did while we're doing that. So we was thinking about how we could incorporate her handwritten music into her images. We used a projector to project onto her in our studio. And I just find this fascinating. You can see the music across her face. It's just very, very expressive. The way that we actually came up with these images was we decided to look at how we can express her in a very subtle way. So we came up with, first of all, this image, and this is just photoshopped when the image is made higher, and it's just tiny little nods to her musicality there. And the next thing we wanted to do was incorporate her own music into this. So using Photoshop and using the music that she'd sent us, we then incorporated a score into these images. We want to play around with this a bit, make it as creative as possible. So this is one option. Option two was looking at it in a different way and having your viewer's eye move more down into the music towards her. And then the final one, which we absolutely love, and we have nicknamed the Star Wars portrait, as you can see, is actually her score going into her head, or if you look at the other way around, her music coming out of her head. We weren't satisfied with this. We wanted to go even further and make it really personalized. So what we wanted to do was visualize Paula's brainwaves. Yes, that's what I said. We wanted to take her brainwaves out of her head and put them on the images that she did. So what I asked her to do with this thing called a Muse 2, it is a meditation device. It sits around the top of your forehead, over your ears, and it has 4 places up here that measures EEG, so your brainwaves. Luckily enough with the Muse 2, you were able to actually export the data out of it. And with some technology and with some Excel use and working with my husband, we visualized her brainwaves. You ready for this? This is brilliant. This is what her brainwaves look like when she plays her violin. So this was exported from the Muse headset, created from data into visualizations, and these are the brainwaves. So you'll see there are 4 on there because there are 4 EEGs. And then from these brainwaves, we then had a bit of a play. So in the next couple of images I'm going to show you are ones we created from her studio shots. So we wanted to think about how we can incorporate those brainwaves and with the images. So we've got her looking at a score here. We want to then translate those brainwaves into notes. So we move them into notes. This is all Photoshop. This is all done using Photoshop and using creative methodologies for her as well. We also wanted to maybe look at, see if we could create something a little different here. So she's looking straight into the music that's coming out of her head. And then we also took some of her actual original handwritten music and superimposed them on there. So she has some really interesting different ones there. Now, I personally thought this was great and I was satisfied. She was over the moon. She thought this was absolutely fantastic. She was not expecting a portrait photographer to make visualizations out of her brainwaves and incorporate those in her imagery. Now, we took it a step forward and we made music from her brainwaves. So, how we did this was because we had the data of her brainwaves, and we managed to then plot it on using a program called MuseScore, which is able to use a digital program to plot different scores. Because we had that data, we ranged the data so it represented a normal scale from A to G. And then we basically plotted it as a score. So this is what her actual brainwaves look like as a score. We called it the internal quartet. They are EEG readings, and this is what it does. And what I thought it might be nice for you guys is I will play you the score, hopefully without any technical difficulties. So an idea of what it sounds like. So give me a moment. I will just let's bring this up. Okay, here we go. I think that's working, is it?
You might need to have to open up your let the sound on your computer, because we can't hear the sound. So
Okay.
just allow Zoom in the Zoom control. Allow Zoom to open sound.
Just a second. I'm not 100% sure. So something that we wanted to move forward and go and do something really crazy was to make music out of Paula's brainwaves. So as you can see here, this is actually the internal quartet. Now I'm going to play you the actual brainwave music. So let's change the. Let's change this up. And here we go.
I don't think we can hear it.
Is it really low? One sec. Okay. Right. Let's take a listen. It's coming out of somewhere, but I don't know where it's coming out. Paula's music should sound like from her brainwaves. Very haunting. I hope you agree. So to sum up, and I thought I'd just add a couple of points about what we've discussed today. I think to be creative and include STEM in it, you need to be able to do something creative every day. Think about how you can use your influences with STEM, with numbers, with science, with engineering, to be able to be really, really creative. And the next thing you need to be thinking about doing is think about all the paths you can take. I want to be, really, I want to be really clear on that the path of education to full-time career is now really, really different. The pandemic has shown that you don't necessarily need to be doing this. You can create your own industry, you can create your own business and go there. But think about all the different areas you can take. You don't necessarily need to go get a full-time job. You can be self-employed, you can be contracting, you can be lots of different things. And there are many paths you can take to this. And the last thing I want to just kind of say is, work with other people you find inspiring. If somebody inspires you, tell them. Really make sure that they are aware, because to be inspiring, to inspire others is where great works happen, to be able to collaborate and do things with people. And so that's what I feel that is important within doing creative things in the STEM world. Be creative every day. Think about the alternative and different ways that you could do this in your own way, and work with other people and be inspired. And be inspiring as well. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch my talk. Be delighted. Any questions?
Thank you, Jemima. That was fantastic. Just come onto camera. That was brilliant. I think I just love the way you combined science and technology with your creativity. We've had a question there. How have creative industries survived during the pandemic?
Honestly, really badly. Really badly. I'll be honest with you guys, is for us, I mentioned at the beginning, the WILLCOX Collective was launched in March. It was launched 2 weeks before the pandemic and the lockdown happened. My husband quit his job and was going to come and join our business because we were doing very well up until then. And it hit many, many people, and it hit us hard because we specialize in creating portraits for businesses. And when businesses are only working from home, that's not going to happen. About 40% of our work comes from events. Now, that's not happened at all. So it's hit incredibly hard. And what I think the interesting thing is, and the way that we have survived, is we've looked at alternative ways of helping people, alternative ways of creating things that people need to do there. For example, the 3D printing we moved forward with. We were doing commissions for people. We were creating interesting things. We were basically doing it right at the beginning in April to make people smile, to give them purpose and give them a feeling of happy, because these were things were making people happy. The other things we did, and I mentioned in the talk, I've got experience in marketing. I had to fall back on my marketing. So one of our clients we've been working with the last 6 months, we've been doing marketing for them in social media and strategy alongside doing photography and videography and things like that.
Somebody's asked, how do you keep yourself motivated, especially when you run your own business? And I guess that returns back a bit to what we were just talking about.
Oh, it's very hard. I think the one thing that I sometimes think about is, I'm people that work for other, for companies. It's so easy because they go into work and they get told what to do, and they do the job and they go home, and that's it. They don't have to worry about where their next paycheck is coming from, or if they have a pension or things like that, or they have to pay tax and how they pay tax. These bitty things that are the frustrating elements of things. Keeping motivated is an interesting one, because you realize that you have ultimate control. Being motivated to go and do what you want. If you are not feeling it that day, that you can't concentrate, you have all the right in the world, because it's your business to say, no, I'm going to go for a drive. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to do something completely different. And that will reset my head and know that I can be motivated again. And I also think the motivation is really important for well-being and for your own mental health, that to be motivated, you're doing your best work and you're at your peak optimized performance. And being motivated is looking at all the things that you've done before and being excited. It's all about being excited, having that excitement to be moving forward. And that's how the motivation comes, when you feel excited about what you're doing. Motivation doesn't come when you're not feeling excited or engaged. And things for me, I personally find, is the weather. Like right now, it's lovely and autumnal, but the dark is drawing in. It's quite hard to keep yourself going. But again, it's bouncing off other people. It's having those collaborators there, your community around you to go, yeah, not feeling great today. Other people that, yeah, it's being motivated to be able to keep going. It's hard, it's pretty tough, but it's worth it in the end.
Thank you. And how do you help clients find their brand identity?
Oh, that's lovely. That's one of my favorite things to do. I absolutely love doing brand discoveries. So I'm talking about what a brand is. So a brand is generally something that how it makes you feel. So we good examples of this is kind of, if we think about things like, if you think of Xbox, you think of green. If you think of Coca-Cola, you think of red. There are subliminal things about that. Brand identities are how that actual brand makes you feel, what you associate your feelings with them. For a product, it'd be something, how does it make you feel? After are you going to the gym, choose a particular product because it makes you feel good. Or if it's yourself that you're selling a service, it's how that service is going to benefit the person in the long term. The brand discovery elements are when you have conversations, you talk, you look at influences. There are things such as the brand values. What values do you stand for? Are you a brand that is quirky and cheeky and a bit silly, like Innocence, a brilliant example of a fantastic brand identity? They're a bit silly, they're a bit cheeky. They get Duncan from Blue to come and promote their new blue smoothies, which are not blue, apparently. But you also have slightly more, serious brands. The NHS is all about trust, about, supporting the nation, of kind of things. So it's about identifying what that brand says and how you can then create that brand around it. And for me personally, I would go right in and look at the visuals and what kind of visuals those identifiable characteristics can represent that brand with. So it's so much fun, and it's an ongoing process as well. It never stops. You're always going to be developing a brand further down the line, things like that. And it's so much fun to see a client and their brand and how they develop and the way that they use imagery to communicate that brand.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jemima. Thank you for joining us for STEM Inspiration Week, and I'm sure there'll be lots of other opportunities for us to work together. So thank you for that. And
I've had a great time. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, bye.